All right, good day, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Wallace Way. Today we have an esteemed guest. This is
Whoa.
Aaron. You're an esteemed now. Come
I
on,
didn't
man.
know that.
You matured into esteem. This
Woof.
is this is Aaron, the editor at Pelicans Debrief, and I wanted to reach out to the brother and bring him onto the show because the Pelicans yesterday made a major move, cutting ties with Stan Van Gundy after 1 year. And while this isn't the team that I grew up loving, for some reason, I grew a special place for the Pelicans. I think it was because I started. I'm still a Lakers fan, but the LeBron stands have moved me to the side, and I can't even get with them right now as long as that guy's there. Great player, but I'm not going to see Space Jam 2. Just won't do it. And so when the when the Lakers traded my baby Lakers to the Pelicans, with Ingram, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball
Mhm.
for Anthony Davis, it was a trade that, I mean, as a Lakers fan, you had to do it. AD
Of
is
course.
a premier talent,
Yeah. Got
and
their title.
yeah, got him a title. Even though I call it the COVID Cup. I don't know if that is on a pantheon of
Yeah.
great Lakers yet, but he's
The, the
he's a
the
talent,
bubble chip. Yeah.
the bubble chip. So we started growing and following the Pelicans, and they're one of the more frustrating teams. But that's
Yep.
why I brought the best on right now to kind of go over with their next few moves. So how we doing today, sir?
Very good, man. Good to see you. Good to talk to you in person. We've talked a few times on Twitter, and I do appreciate the fact that you're one of the few sane people who doesn't, immediately start telling me to kill myself or like calling me names on Twitter. So yeah,
Man,
good to see you.
Twitter's a weird place, man.
It's wild.
It's a wild place. But no, like I said, I was attracted to your writing because first of all, you do it the best.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
you're really up on Pelicans, the drama, the team, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's the fairness that we have to like.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first thing. Stan Van Gundy firing yesterday. What was your thoughts on it?
I mean, it's not that surprising, to be honest. I mean, a little bit. I am a little bit surprised that they did it now. I thought they would probably give him a little bit of a more of an opportunity to turn things around. But I do give David Griffin some credit that if he thinks it wasn't going to work, then do it. There's no reason to wait around and waste another half season or whatever. If you think your star players aren't aligned with this guy or that he's not the right fit. And to be honest, I never really thought he was a long-term solution. We talked a little bit about this before the
Mm-hmm.
show, but when they hired him, I thought this is a guy that will probably be a stopgap to the next person. He might have been a good choice just because of the season. It was, this weird shortened season with no off season. They needed someone who could kind of jump in and hit the ground running. And I think he was that guy. And I do think he did some positive things. I would say all of the young players got better under him.
Sure.
He unleashed Zion as a point guard, which I think he has to be given some credit for. But if the long-term fit isn't there, why wait? I mean, I think get rid of him. But I also think he's been made the scapegoat for David Griffin's poor roster
Mm.
construction. And then that was more the problem than Van Gundy was. But I wasn't that surprised by it.
Yeah, no, it's I went on one of my buddies' podcasts early last season, or in the off season, and I was like, he's not it's a terrible hire, and it wasn't a terrible hire because Stan Van Gundy is a bad coach or a bad guy. In fact, he's incredible on TV. It's
Yeah.
much better than his brother, and I look forward to actually hearing. I, I
Yeah,
I
me
look forward to
too.
hearing from him next year, but just the way the team was young. Here's a guy who literally hasn't been a good coach since 2010 at
Yeah.
Orlando.
I mean, the game moves quickly, it changes quickly. And
It does.
also, this is a young team. And so you need someone who can resonate with like young players. And I don't know that he's that guy. I mean, he is like a kind of grumpy old man who I think they thought would bring some toughness and accountability and those kinds of things. But those aren't buzzwords that these kids care about. And like, in the end, they don't want to be yelled at all the time. And I do think there was probably some clashes. I don't have any inside information or anything on that, but I do think there were probably some personality clashes perhaps that led to this. So yeah, time to move on.
No, I agree. I agree. So now that he's gone, let's talk about some of the replacements. And I saw your article today, or was it today or yesterday? But you mentioned two possible replacements. First was Teresa Witherspoon.
Hmm.
And we all remember her from the WNBA days. And she played for New York Liberty, and maybe she hit
Sure.
that like 3-quarter shot against
Insane
Houston.
shot.
Yeah, that was insane. So how does she fit into this role?
I mean, I wrote about 2 internal candidates today, her and Fred Vinson, and I doubt either one of them actually gets the job, but I do think they're going to be there. I think one of the probably terms of whoever the head coach is that those 2 are going to be part of his staff or her staff, because they've done a great job, and they also need some amount of continuity. I mean, this is going to be their 3rd head coach in 3 years, so if they can keep some internal options and maybe even promote one of them to like assistant head coach or something like that, I think that's probably more what's going to happen with Weatherspoon. I like her as an option because she brings all the things that David Griffin says he wants. She's a smart basketball mind. She knows how to teach basketball. She's got good rapport with the players. She's known some of them for a long time.
Yeah.
She's got a good relationship with Zion and with Kira Lewis. I know she's known him for ages. So, I mean, I like her a lot. And Fred Vinson was the other person I mentioned, and I like him too. He's been with the Pelicans for a long time, actually, for 10 years or 11 years now. He's been there since 2010. So, and been through 3 different head coaches, and he keeps his job. So that tells you he's good at it. And also, he's known for kind of was the one that really helped Lonzo and Brandon Ingram really make their strides as shooters. So I think they're both great options to keep on the staff. I think one of them might get promoted to, say, assistant or associate head coach, whichever one they use nowadays. I don't think they'll get the head coaching job, but I'd be happy with either one of them. I think the players really like them, and I do think that's one way to sort of galvanize a group is to take someone they all like and already have a relationship with.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I would actually love to see that. Now my sleeper pick for them to get head coach is Mikey Malone out in Denver. I think first of all, he's a good coach. He's a good coach. I don't know if he's that championship level coach, take it to the next level, and I think Denver's there. So I think he might have reached his peak at Denver.
I mean, this would be the kind of guy, to be honest, that I would avoid. I'm hoping they don't go with another retread who's already lost somewhere. And, and not that these guys aren't good coaches. I, first of all, think that coaching is probably the most overrated thing in the NBA. I mean, everyone's like, who's the greatest coach of all time? Is it Phil Jackson? Gee, I wonder why he was so great. It turns out he had 4 of the top, like 12 players who ever played the game on his teams. It's like great players make great coaches, and eventually the Pelicans are going to win if they built the right roster, no matter who is the coach. But I would prefer for them to go with someone who's a little younger, who can maybe grow with the team, can be there long term. They need to prove that their franchise can have some kind of continuity. If you look at some of the other small market teams that have had success in the past, most of them did it under a coach that was there for a little while, had some amount of, continuity from year to year. And, so I'm hoping they go with someone new, and a new voice, a new, fresh face, maybe someone who's not coached before, and that who can grow with the team, and build sort of some long-term success, and not just be like, oh, we're just going to switch it out every year until we find someone who works with Zion, because that's exactly what they tried to do with AD, and look how that turned out.
That's a good point. I'm with you on that. I do. In general, I am against the Terry Stott retreads, and it's the same guys every 2-3 years, and they always get fired. And it's like, there's a reason.
I know. Like, I don't want, Jason Kidd. I don't want Mark Jackson. I mean, I just think, why? I think again and again the NBA does this where they're like, we'd rather, give the 10th chance to some old dude than to try someone new, and personally, I think go for it. I mean, look at what sort of like, I look at the Celtics, who are another team who, even though they're one of the marquee franchises in the NBA, obviously they're not a free agent destination. They're not a team that a lot of players want to go to. Mm-hmm. And so they have to build continuity and build success through the draft and through what they've done with their coach. And I do think that they've been able to do it partly because they haven't had a huge amount of turnover in the front office and in the coaching ranks, recently, at least.
Recently, right.
Yeah. So, this is the recent success they've had. And really that's all you really want as a fan is for your team to be in the mix. Like if you have Zion, he's a superstar player, get him into the playoffs and see what happens. You just want to be in the conversation every year, Yeah, you don't want to be like, this every offseason, like, okay, what do we do now?
No, I'm with you. So speaking of the roster makeup, let's kind of go over the roster makeup if we can. I was looking at a couple salaries this morning. And well, first and foremost, what do they do with the ball boy, Lonzo? One of our favorite
I
players.
wish I knew, to be honest. I think we talked a little bit about this, but I do think the fact that Stan Van Gundy was let go might be an indication that they're going to keep Lonzo, because it might have been something to do with how they used him. This is what Lonzo's fans would want you to believe anyway, that it was all Stan Van Gundy's fault. But so that might be some indication they're going to keep him. I'm going to be honest, I really don't know. I think it really depends on what happens with the other teams. I think, most Pelican fans are savvy enough to know that they don't want to pay him $25 million a year or something. So if some team like the Bulls or Knicks comes along and throws the truck at him, I don't know. I mean, I think David Griffin might use it as an excuse to say, well, we didn't want to go that high. We made an offer at 17 or 18 million a year, didn't want to go above that, and the Knicks were going to go 21 a year, whatever they can offer their max, and we didn't want to match it. I think fans would accept that some. Mm-hmm. So I honestly don't know, man. I mean, I think I've been trying to figure this out for the last 2 years, really.
It's very nebulous. So what is your okay? Now let's just say you're a GM, right?
My gut is they bring him back.
Your gut is bring him back. What at what price? What's a good if you're a GM? What's a good contract for Lonzo?
I think if you can stay in the 80s, you've won.
Like 4 years, 80.
Yeah, something along those lines. I think would be a fair. And people have to remember now that $20 million a year is practically minimum wage for a third star on a team. Like, I think a lot of fans don't pay attention to how these salaries escalate and sort of
quickly. Yes.
I get into this all the time on people Twitter, like, you can't pay your third guy $20 million. I'm like, dude, Terry Rozier makes 20. You know what I mean? Like right. Gary, what's his face? In Denver makes 20. Mm-hmm. Harris. There are guys who are worse than Lonzo who make that. So I think you're looking at that much. That's how much it's going to take to keep him. Because if they offer lower than that, the Bulls are going to swoop right in and take him. And Lonzo might be happy to leave. So I think if they can get him for that, that'd be great. I think it's going to probably take closer to 100 though. So,
so you're thinking 5 years 100 or 480?
If they were able to get him for 5 and the last year was a team option, that'd be great. But yeah, something around in that range. I mean, I think that's what they can pay. And I do think if we think Stan Van Gundy was let go because of the relationships he had with players, and that Zion is probably one of them, and that he was the one that kind of complained and got this rolling, which I think is probably what happened, because I don't think they're moving him because he didn't play Nickeil Alexander-Walker over Bledsoe. A lot of people, I'm like, dude, you don't fire a coach for that.
Not for that. No.
Right. But like, especially when Nah was terrible in the beginning of the season, people seem to forget. But I think if like you're going by what the players want and kind of letting them take a little more action here, I think that they're all friends, and Lonzo and Brandon Ingram really like Zion and Brandon Ingram really like Lonzo. So yeah. I think if they have a say in the matter, he'll be back.
I'm with you. I think the Pelicans actually are sans the Lakers, the Sixers, the top teams. I think they're like right there as one of the most interesting teams because they have immense young talent.
Definitely, and they have a ton of draft assets that they can move in a trade. I mean, like there are going to be some stars moving, and the Pelicans have the best package to offer anyone because they've got a couple of young players that have shown potential, and they've got unlimited draft picks to trade away almost. So at some point, they're going to move some of that stuff. I do think this is the offseason they'll do it because David Griffin's on the hot seat now himself. He can't blame the coach next season if they lose again with a poorly constructed and another blown draft pick. So I think, I think he'll go for it. He'll push on the chips a little bit this offseason and make a big move.
Now, the owner is Gail Benson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is she really in the does she? Okay, I mean, I know she cares because we're talking $1 billion company.
Sure,
but does she really?
She seems to. I mean, like like a lot of NBA owners, I don't know how much, and she's more of a legacy owner. Her family, right. She inherited the team from her husband when he passed away, and she also owns the Saints. So it's not, it's a pretty busy, job. I doubt that she's like intricately involved in every personnel decision, but I'm sure she had to sign off on this because she's the one cutting the checks. She's the one paying Stan Van Gundy to not work, and
right.
So it's like. That'll take its toll. Eventually she's going to be like, why am I cutting all these checks for coaches? Find one that's good. And that's on you, David Griffin. You know, so I mean, I think he's
He's on the
definitely
hot
in the
seat.
hot seat himself. He's got to have a good offseason.
Fair enough. Now we got one thing about the Pels when I watched them, and a lot of we watch him a lot here, me and my buddy, because he's a big Duke fan, so he loves Ingram, he loves Zion.
Yeah.
What's up with their are they too chill? Like, are they too laid back? Like when I see Zoe, I mean, you see the talent, but like they just be so. I don't see no grit, no grind, no passion, no fighting.
I don't know that it's like that. I think it's more just none of them are sort of vocal leaders. You know, when you watch someone like Chris Paul or some of these guys who are known for that, they don't have anyone like that. You know, I mean, I think what the commonality of Zion and Brandon, Ingram, and Lonzo is they're all kind of soft-spoken guys who just say, I'm going to let my play do the talking for me. They're not like the kind who are going to scream at the refs or get in somebody's face all the time. I mean, I wanted to see a little bit more of that last season, especially when Zion was getting hacked constantly. I was like, he needs to throw an elbow already.
Right.
And, I'm not talking about dirty play, but it's just playing the game hard and a little tit for tat. Because, I mean, he was getting hammered in the post constantly and probably led to his injury. So it's like, every now and then you got to give some of that back. I did like the addition of James Johnson in that regard because I think, he adds a little bit of that. And you need that. You need one of those guys that's going to jump in the other team's face and, be like, you're not going to push us around like that. And I also think there's a little bit of just – they're all very good. I think it's when you're the best guy. Zion and Brandon Ingram and Lonzo have been the best guy on their team their whole lives. And they've been able to sort of coast on talent, and you can't do that in the NBA. I don't care how good you are. So it's like I do think there's a little bit of that. Like they get these big leads and they think, we can just walk this home, and they can't. You cannot do that in the NBA. The worst team in the NBA will come back from 25 down and beat you if you don't play hard. And so I do think there's a little bit of that. I don't think it's too much that they're not competitive. I just think they do need that guy, though. They someone who's part of the team, though, more part of the rotation and starting lineup, who's more of a vocal leader. They lost that a little bit when Holiday was traded.
Yeah, and that Holiday trade looks terrible as time goes on. And
I don't know. I disagree. I mean, if you look at the two teams, the Bucks are likely to get bounced again. The Pelicans are the same as they were. It's not like they're markedly worse without Drew Holiday. I do think that we won't really know if that one worked out until we see how those draft picks turn out. If they end up getting lucky and the Bucks flame out in a few years, and 5 years from now they're getting a number one pick because of that, people are going to be like, that was the best pick, best trade ever. So it's too early to judge it. But I love Drew Holiday, but I do think that extension was huge that he got from the Bucks, and now they're in. That's their team. And
that's their team, yeah.
They might not be able to get out of the East. So I don't know that was like the worst trade ever. I mean, I think Holiday's obviously way better than Eric Bledsoe, but the Pelicans weren't really trying to win this year. They didn't think they were probably a contender. So I do think in the long run, we'll see if it works out. If they end up getting two garbage draft picks out of it, then we can reevaluate that one.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of looking at the roster here and for the contracts. Shit, they on the Bledsoe's making $18 million and $19 million next year.
Yeah, the final year is not fully guaranteed, so they could potentially get out from under him. I do think that's why a lot of people have been really down on Bledsoe, which I think is a bit unfair because I don't know what they thought was coming here. Like he's a 30-year-old. He's on his downside. He is what he is
at this point.
Yeah. He wasn't going to suddenly get any better, and this is what he is. He's like a streaky shooter who doesn't do much else. He doesn't really get to the rim anymore, and he's a declining defender. I'd say that's being generous at this point. But I had no expectations for him, and I don't know what anyone was thinking. I mean, so I don't know. A lot of gets put on him, but I think he's still going to be pretty easy to move. I mean, I think especially at the next trade deadline, he'll be an expiring deal more or less.
Right.
And the Pels have loads of draft picks. They might have to attach one to him to move him. But I mean, if so, who cares? I mean, you can't hoard draft picks forever unless you want to be Oklahoma City and never win.
Boston, right? Boston's still holding on for that Memphis draft pick, right?
Yeah, I know. It's like if you want to just be like perpetually, like Boston, I think has missed some opportunities, but they also still have two young top under 25 players in the league. So they haven't like struck out or anything, and they're going to be competitive. Without injuries this year, they would have been right in the mix, I think. So I wouldn't throw them into that category. I'm thinking more like teams like OKC, who just, always just seem to push it down the road. And, eventually you want to be good at some point. You want to win games. That's the point, not to hoard draft picks like you're playing video games,
Yeah, right. So, like I said, one of my baby Lakers, I guess they're not babies anymore. They're like 20, he's about 26, but Josh
Hart
to
me. Yeah.
is he's always been one of my favorite players, even watching him at Villanova, and then going to the pros. He's one of those guys that's a great glue guy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you expect his contract to be, and is he coming back next year?
I would say that probably depends a lot on what they do with Lonzo. I doubt they keep both of them. I mean, it really depends on what he's going to get. I think Josh Hart might have messed up by not taking the contract extension he was offered at the beginning of the season, which was rumored to be in the 10 million for 4 years or something like that. Okay. So like 40 million overall. I think he thought he could blow up and get more like 15, which he still might. I mean, there are some teams out there that might overpay. I mean, he's in that sort of second or third tier of free agents that might get overpaid if, some team with cap space misses out on a star or something like that and just wants to make some kind of splash. He's the kind of guy that often gets overpaid. If he does, it won't be from the Pelicans because they've seen enough. I mean, like, he is what he is. He's a very, he's okay. He's not a great defender. I do think he's overrated. He's one of those guys that falls on the ground a lot, so people think he's like hustling. I'm going to get reamed for that one. No, he's probably one of their better. I love Josh Hart, I should say too. And I mean, I don't want to get into the details, but he hooked me up with a couple bottles of wine one time. Okay. So I'm a huge Josh Hart fan. Personally, I just don't think the Pelicans are in a position that he moves the needle for them. I do think like he'd be a great option as like a 6th or 7th man on a good team.
A good team, yes.
The Pelicans aren't quite there yet, and if he could just shoot 38% or 40% from 3-point range, I'd be like, pay him, because he is a good defender and he's one of the better guard rebounders in the NBA, and he does have a little bit of that like toughness and hustle that a lot of those other players lack. So I love Josh Hart. But they can't afford to pay him $15 million a year if that's what he ends up getting. If it's more like 3 years, $21 million, sign the contract right now. But I think he'll probably get more than that from someone.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy, and especially in today's NBA, he's rugged. You're right. To me personally, out of the people on the team, he's the only one that does have a little oomph to him, and I think that's necessary in today's league. And I think. I hope all these guys get paid.
Yeah. I am 100% for the players, so I don't ever fault guys for leaving, for taking the cash, for getting more money. I'm like, your window of opportunity could end very quickly, and that, in sports, you could get hurt. Anything can happen. Take your money, cash those checks. I'm all for it. I watch for the players. I cheer for them. I want them to get paid, so I wish Josh Hart well. And if somebody wants to pay him, in restricted free agency and make him a big offer, I don't think the Pelicans will go too high for him. But if they could, it also sounds like he might want, hey, he was quoted as, I don't know how much stock I put in those rumors, but, some people were floating around this thing that he had said he wanted a fresh start. So if he does, I think they'll probably let him have it.
Yeah, no doubt. No, that's, my baby Lakers are breaking up, but 4 or 5 years in the league, it might be time. It's just time for fresh starts.
Yeah.
All right, real quick before we get up out of here. You can snap your fingers, go to the next season. What are 3 moves that you want the Pels to make, and will these moves push them into the playoffs?
They're more than a few moves, I think, is the problem. And I think fans, they could have a big offseason and still come up short, because they're not very well constructed team at the moment. So, I mean, first of all, they have to get someone who's committed to defense, who plays in the starting rotation, on a regular, not James Johnson. It has to be someone. They have to get a wing defender who can match up against some of these guys, or Brandon Ingram needs to get a lot better on defense. One of those two things has to happen, because right now they're just getting torched on the wing, and their defense is terrible, as we all know. I think both Ingram and Zion can be much better defenders than they are. I'm not as worried about them, but they just didn't have anyone else. They need more size. That was one of the problems with Hart, and one of the reasons why I think they might move on for him, because he's great as a 6'5" shooting guard. If he's a 6'5" power forward guarding, and wing, that's suddenly undersized for the position. So, they had him guarding up almost all the time. So they need somebody with some size on the wing who can defend. They need, defense all over. Then they need shooting. I mean, their 3-point shooting was abysmal last season. I am not one of these people who thinks Zion can't play with Steven Adams and that Adams creates all these spacing issues. The spacing issues is because they don't have guards who can penetrate or consistently hit shots. Right. So like Lonzo, we all saw it. Lonzo at times is the best player on the floor. When he gets hot, he can hit 10 threes in a game. Mm-hmm. When he's not hot, he'll miss 10 threes and do nothing else. So like if they can't get more out of their guards, they're going to have the same fate. The spacing issues are because of that, not because of Steven Adams. I mean, he creates space with all these big screens he sets. Yeah. So they need to get some shooting around Zion. Somebody who can consistently get to the rim would be nice. Maybe that's Lonzo. Maybe they can get him working on that. But those would be my additions. I mean, I think if depending on where they end up in the draft, I would probably look to trade that pick. I would be targeting a team that wants maybe a soft rebuild or is trying to rebuild and has a better player to give up for that pick and a few future picks even. I mean, a couple guys that come to mind would be someone like Jeremy Grant on the Pistons, although I don't think they're going to trade him. But,
he just got there, right?
Yeah, but, they're still a couple years away really realistically. So, I mean, they might look to if they could get this, say the Pelicans end up with the 10th pick in this draft. I don't think the player they can take with the 10th pick is going to be someone who's going to help them right away necessarily. So unless they got really lucky. So to me, I package that pick with someone else and maybe a few other picks and go after a guy like Malcolm Brogdon or Jeremy Grant or maybe someone like Fred VanVleet.
Oh, you think he's on the block?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at any of the teams that underperformed, and especially now that Pascal Siakam is out, possibly for the whole season, that's going to set them back, and so they're not going to win next year. So he might be, yeah. I mean, I think same with the Pistons, the Pacers. I don't know. I mean, them firing their coach, they probably want to get back in the playoffs. So Brogdon might not be on the table. I'm just throwing these names out there. I don't have any specific, but those would be the kind of guys I would target. Someone like Norman Powell potentially in free agency if he declines his player option. I think is another guy who could move the needle for them. Free agency wise, they got to get some shooters. I mean, I really am quite high on Doug McDermott, believe it or not. A lot of people don't like. Yeah, I mean, like some people are like, oh, go after Tim Hardaway Jr. It's like he's the same player as McDermott, really. I mean, they both are just 3-point shooters who don't do much else. Right. McDermott's bigger, he's younger, or they're the same age, and he's going to probably be a lot cheaper to get. So, I mean, I think someone like that, but I do think Griffin will try to make a big splashy move to try to, hey, don't look too closely.
Don't fire me.
Yeah, don't fire me. I just got Bradley Beal or something, So I do think I think the possibility of someone like him, definitely if the Wizards decide to blow that up, but they might be like, hey, we like this Westbrook, Russell Westbrook Beal pairing. It got us to the play-in game at least. We had some players around them. Maybe we're good. So I don't know. I mean, I think David Griffin's got his work cut out for him, and the clock's ticking for him.
Yeah. Wow, that's good stuff. Brother Aaron, thank you so much, man, for hopping on with us.
Oh, no problem, man. Anytime.
It's a pleasure. We definitely got to, once free agency really pops off, I definitely got to get you back on. We got to figure out what we do with Lonzo, figure out where the Pels going, and see where we could take this. But NBA needs Zion in the playoffs. I'm gonna say that right now. This is getting whack now. Like he's a special talent, and they don't have to take a deep run.
I mean, man, they tried their best to get him in. I mean, they couldn't have changed the rules anymore to help the Pelicans, to be honest. It's like, let's let all the teams in the West in. Why not? Let's have a play-in tournament that involves everyone.
Exactly. It was so obvious, but it was like they still can't get in.
I got to tell you, though, I guarantee you every other team that was in that play-in tournament were hoping to hell that Zion didn't get in. Because, I mean, I do think he's one of the 10 players in the league that can win a playoff series alone by himself almost. So I guarantee you that some of those teams in the 7, 8 seeds. We're hoping to hell he didn't get in. You know, I would much rather play Memphis than us, I think.
I agree. No, but so it's going to be interesting. The Pels, like you said, besides the top teams, they're probably the most intriguing team in the NBA because
I agree.
all that talent, and it's just it's time to click and let's take it to the next level. So
I agree.
Listen, brother, thank you so much. And
yeah, man.
Next season, you got to come. We'll go to New Orleans, my favorite city in America, and we got to catch a game, man.
Definitely.
Awesome,
Let's
brother.
do that.
Anyway, you know what? Plug your stuff real quick before we get out of here.
Oh yeah, you can find me at Pelican Debrief. I edit the site, so I write quite a lot of articles. We'll have a couple things going up today about different coaching options, some other ones from assistant coaches from other teams that we'll be looking at, I think. And you can follow me also. Just find my Twitter handle on Pelican Debrief. That's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Go check out the brother. He's putting up that crazy content right now. He's doing it really big. All right, everybody. Thank you for this. Join us for the Wallace Way edition, and we'll be back later on. Peace.
Take care.